Welcome back. Stasa23 here, back again with some knife therapy for you. And today is an exciting one. Anytime I get to handle a custom knife, it's just a joy. This one's on loan, so I do have to send it back. But very, very exciting to say the least. This is the Will Moon Custom Banshee. And the one you see in front of you today in this current configuration, 20CV blade and, this current handle setup. This one's about $1,050, but if you're interested in this, he has tons of options on his website, and the base model with G10 and 154 CM blade comes down to $600. So starts at $600, then the sky's the limit depending on what you choose for your materials. So one thing that's awesome to note about this is 100% totally made in the USA. Even the parts are sourced out in the USA, so everything done. Being that Will is from the USA, everything from this knife is 100% USA made. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's get some quick stats on this guy. This is a pretty nice sized knife. 8 3/4 inch overall, 4-inch blade, 4-inch grip area. You have a tapered handle. So at the thickest portion right here, it is a pretty beefy 0.72 thickness, but it tapers down to 0.58 all the way to the back. So it is a chunky monkey, but it makes up for it. And this category is pretty slim right in this direction at 1.24 inches wide. So it was manageable in the pocket, to say the least. It didn't bother me whatsoever. Thickness doesn't usually bother me, especially when the weight's good. And we'll get back to that in just a second. It's a pretty beefy blade stock at 0.18 or 4.7 millimeters. But he does a nice job of thinning it out with a nice thin hollow grind. And at the thinnest portion of the edge, I measured at 22 thousandths with a 20 per side bevel. So nicely done. And pretty much everything that I used, I didn't go hard on this knife. I didn't do all the same stuff I would do on my knives, because this isn't my knife and this is an expensive knife. So I ran it through some cardboard, some different thicknesses, and I brought it to my pine block tester ergos, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get a very close-up shot of this sexiness. Ooh, look at that. This is what he calls a drop point harpoon blade shape. Like I said, hollow ground, two-tone finish. You have polished flats and a polished stone wash primary bevel and swedge up there. As you can see, it's kind of hard to show. You can see that the specs right there up on the swedge too. That swedge almost comes up to pretty much like a false edge up there, but it's not sharp whatsoever. But it does thin that tip out, so you have a nice precise point for piercing, but you still have that nice robust tip, being that it's just being brought down from the swedge. The knife, the blade is pretty much sterile. All you have is Will's maker mark right there, which I like a lot. I forget, what is that called? Whatever. It looks cool. You have dual knurled thumb studs for traction when opening. It does a great job of giving you purchase on those thumb studs to fire that blade out. And being this is a custom knife, you get custom touches, and it shows right here on the top spine of the knife. He's got jeweling, which I've never seen on top of the spine of the knife. But that's just a cool little touch. Also, nice chamfer right there, as you can see. So you have no sharp edges right here. Let's close this guy up. You have this nice and beautiful, mesmerizing lightning strike red lightning strike carbon fiber with the what is it called? Just a regular wire, not bronze wire, but silver wire. Huh. I don't know why I couldn't say that. And as you can see, look how beautiful it is up here. That's just the ends of those wires right there. Just so much to look at. And my dog's probably gonna go crazy, but this is my 5th time trying to do this. He does a great job of his finishing, because if anybody's had lightning strike carbon fiber, knows that if the finishing work's not done right, you will have wires poking out, and there's absolutely no wires poking out whatsoever. Great job, great job. You have a nice Steve Kelly pivot, and I'm pretty sure that's a Steve Kelly button on the into that lock right there. Torx T10, Torx T8 on the body. Very, very nice. I'm glad there's no T6s. I can't stand that. You have a nice bevel going out here and right here that gives it that 3D contoured effect. But you do have this nice flat right here, so you can accompany that nice inlay right there that literally I cannot feel whatsoever. I could not tell you where it comes in and out. You don't see any gaps. So very nicely done. And that's not just regular carbon fiber. That's shred glow in the dark carbon fiber. And check this out. It's not gonna look as cool because it's not dark, but you'll get the idea. And I mean, this is some beautiful stuff. Look at that. I'm charging it up right now. Look at that. That's sexy. Check it out on his Instagram. You can see it all in the dark with it lit up. Just very, very cool. We'll talk about the lock in just a second. When I first saw this knife, I thought this was an integral. And at first glance, as you can see, it looks like an integral. But if you come up close, you can see it's like a clamshell. You can see the, where is it at? It's hard to even catch it on the camera. You can see the line right there. But like I said, you know, that custom touch when you're finishing is done right. There's the line right there too. You can make it look so nice. Very nice. Look at that. Oh, I love that. This lock right here, as everybody knows, the Benchmade Axis Lock patent has run out. But so they're more than welcome to use it. His is a different iteration, and I like that. You know, we've seen Sog do it, we've seen Hogue do it, and I'd say so far Will has executed the best I've seen so far. His is called the Spindle Lock, and his does not use Omega springs. You'll see that piston right there, that bar right there on both sides. And there's a coil spring pushing tension up on there, keeping the lock with tension. Very cool idea. And a very, very solid lock. No play up or down, left or right. This thing is riding on ceramic cage bearings. So you do have a very, very buttery smooth action on there. And like I said, when you want it to come all the way down like that, you just pull those bars all the way back. You can pull it one finger, but it is a little bit harder because there's a little bit more pressure on that spring, at least in my opinion. Let's see. The knife is completely centered. I wouldn't expect any different. Flip it over. You just have a straight piece of bar stock titanium that's been jeweled up top. You have the Todd Begg style pocket clip with the ceramic ball for retention. And I'll show you what it looks like in the pocket. And I found it rode how I would like a custom knife to ride. I don't want this thing coming popping out of my pocket, especially if I spend that much money. You have about that much sticking out, but you do have all that sexiness to look at. As you can see, you still have room for some thicker pants. And you get that positive click when you pull it out. I tend to like that, like I said, with a knife at this price point. I definitely don't want to have any chances of this thing coming out of my pocket. You can see how crisp his wedges are, perfectly lined up, even on both sides. That's a nice touch. I mean, it's nice to see that, you know, his grinding is up to par. He's been in the game for a while, so he's had some time to perfect his craft. Also, you do have some jimping that's milled into the carbon fiber. It gives you some traction. I'd call it a light to medium traction. It doesn't bother me any, especially the way that this handle comes in there. Kind of has a guard right there, so it locks my hand in pretty nicely. And with that thicker handle, with that Coke bottle style handle, it really locks your hand into place. And fills it rather nicely. So I had no fatigue when I was using this knife whatsoever. The handle being as thick as it is, it filled the palm of my hand really well. So I didn't feel like I was trying to compensate on one side of the handle or the other. We'll do a quick weight on this guy, and then I'm gonna do some size comparisons and some knives that you know, kind of reminded me of this blade, one in particular. 4.8 ounces. That is outstanding. Let's see how many grams for my other people out there that are on the European side of the world. try to do that as much as possible. 115 grams. So for almost a 9-inch knife, that's amazing. I mean, that's helped. The all carbon fiber construction's helping. You do have some nested titanium plates right there that hold the mechanism in place. And I don't know if I can show it, but I was looking at it off camera. He's even jeweled the plates in there, and that's not even something that you can really see. But that's just a show of his attention to detail. There you go. You can see it right there about the top of my finger, the plate right there. Just excellent. I love when the maker will go over and beyond to perfect one of their, you know, blood, sweat, and tear designs. So one knife that this knife, you know, really reminded me of when I was using it, you know, the way it cut and, you know, the way it didn't cut the best in certain materials, and that would be the Microtech SOCOM. They're pretty close to the same size. You do have more blade length with the SOCOM, but you have that same style handle. See how the SOCOM tapers down a good bit? So it feels pretty, you know, pretty similar in hand. I would say the Banshee is a little bit more comfortable because you have some more contouring. This is pretty much a flat scale with a bevel going around the side. But very, very comparable in the way they carried and in the way they feel in hand and the way they cut. Another good size comparison, just because I don't have a whole lot of big knives, would be the Spyderco Military. But as you can see, the Military is a good bit longer. Got two more. The large Chris Reeve Inkosi. It's a little bit bigger than the Inkosi. And one that's a little bit more common, the Benchmade Freak or Super Freak, which is close to the same size. They got about the same size handles. And the Super Freak in the back, the back portion of the Banshee feels about the same as the Super Freak in hand. It was just really, really nice to see an axis lock that is complete rock solid. You know, there's no play left or right, up or down in this guy. You can muscle a little bit of like up and down, but it's just that the nature, just like any Benchmade I have, it's just the nature of that bar just kind of like creaking. I can muscle a good bit out of this one if I pull back and forth. Any Benchmade I have, I can definitely do that. So definitely not a knock on the knife. I know it's a strong lock and it's not, you know, it shouldn't fail you. Okay, so we're gonna talk about a few pretty much nitpicks, our personal preferences. Nothing that was crazy that I've noticed. You know, I didn't beat this knife to death, but I was able to use the knife. I was able to cut some things with it, and I was careful. You know, I don't want to destroy this blade. It's got such a beautiful finish on there. So first off, I'm not a huge fan of the polished stonewash. Now that's a personal preference. I would have rather it just be polished or like a brushed satin. I don't know. It's just not for me, because in certain lights, it kind of looks dirty. But, you know, it's each their own. It's probably a better working finish. And that's just my preference. And you can choose that. So if you don't like that finish, you can definitely go without it. So that's really just that's a mute issue. Let's see. And, you know, another personal preference, it is a little thick. And that wasn't that big of a deal, but it's a little big for my taste. And that's just personal preference. Once again, if you like bigger blades, this one's nice. You know, if I had the kind of cash and I didn't have the SOCOM, you know, it'd be a great fit. Now we'll get into a few little nitpicks that I had. You know, everybody knows I'm a stickler for the sharpening shawl, and I'm not even sure, because I don't know, you know, if it could be changed, but I would have loved to see this extended just a little bit. See how you got that smile right there? It's not that really prevalent on this side, but you can see it right there. And I don't know if that can even be fixed, because I do know that bar right there is holding it in the stop position, so you're not coming in contact with the scales. So I don't know if that can be fixed or not. And that's just a nitpick. It's not hurting the functionality of the knife whatsoever. You just will have a little smile there when you sharpen it. The next thing I noticed, and this is really not, to me, it's not that big of a complaint, but I was cutting some thicker cardboard when I was pushing through. I did notice that the blades, the thumb studs are in the cutting path just by a little bit, but for the most part, whenever I get started in my cut, I'm pulling through, so I usually don't feel it. Only reason I was able to touch that because I was doing a straight down cut, pushing through just to see how it felt whenever it started binding up on the full thickness of that blade. So that's another thing. I don't know if they can be pushed back any. It has some clearance. As you can see, you have a good bit of clearance, but I'm not a custom maker. I don't know. I don't know if it'll flip, you know, the same. I don't know if it'll open the same if you move it up. That's just a nitpick, you know. That's not something that really bothers me that much, like I said, because most of the time I'm not push cutting, I'm slicing, and I don't always notice that. To each their own, you know. This is one that they do get it right. The thumb studs or the blade stops are out of that cutting path, but you know, it's depending on if that's something that bothers you. Not really something that bothers me, just something to note. And last, and I guess another just nitpick, because I was pretty much bearing down this knife really, really hard just to see if I had any hot spots. And everybody knows my hands are nice and beat up. So if I say something's a hot spot, it may not be a hot spot. Probably not for you. I have a medium-sized hand, so I get a good grip on that knife, and I still have some real estate in the back. But I did notice whenever I was doing my my shaving of the wood, that I did get a small minor hot spot in the backside of this clip, and it wasn't anything to where it was wearing a blister on my hand, just something that I did notice it was there. But I will say, with that thickness right here, I had no problems with this knife wanting to torque in my hand. I had control of it, and you do have this nice thumb pad to put your finger on there, so it was easy cutting and it was a joy to use. I just wish I could have kept on using it, but. Super, super cool knife. Maybe one day I'll have the money to get something this nice and pretty. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. If you like seeing these type of knives, let me know. I'll try to get more on the channel. You know, every once in a while we have some you know, gems of human beings that you know, trust me enough to send me a knife like this to check out. And this one was definitely a joy. I love that blade shape. There's so much to love about these knives, especially a full custom like this that I haven't really been able to handle. I hadn't handled a custom in a while. I think my buddy Tony Meader sent me a few customs to check out, and a friend of mine from Blade Show let me check out that Borka mini stitch. So there you go. Like I said, questions, comments, please leave them down below. Let me know what you think about this current configuration. If this is something that you would go for, let's have a discussion down in the comment section below. Hope everybody's having an absolutely wonderful day, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.